Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be doing a one-shot, and I'm going to say this right up front. I know that I promised you guys Pieces of Us by Mana Banana as the next fic, and it will be coming. It will be the next video, but I read this fic in January and I just loved it so much, and I was able to get permission to PODFIC it, so I just wanted to do it, especially since it was only a one-shot. So, now that we've gotten that out of the way, today we are doing a one-shot. It is called What It Takes to Get Rid of a Duck, and it is by LadybugsFanfics. And first time on this channel, it is not Kiribati. It is still My Hero Academia, but it is not Kiribati. Okay, so like I said, it is a My Hero Academia fanfic. It is rated T, and there are no archive warnings. It is still MM, but the relationship between the two characters in this fic are Bakugo Katsuki and Hitoshi Shinso. The characters in this fic are Shinso Hitoshi, Bakugo Katsuki, and there are background/cameo characters. The additional tags for this fic: Shinso Hitoshi is afraid of ducks. Soulmate goose of enforcement, but it's a duck. Hurt comfort, violence, ? Fluff, crack, and kinda crack treated seriously, ? Soft and forced proximity. As I said, it is a one-shot. It is 9,909 words. Here's a summary. A duck is trying to break into my apartment, and I need you to kill it. Bakugo doesn't reply for a moment. Hitoshi almost thinks he's hung up on him and that he has to try again. But then, what? Hitoshi sighs and prays this entire ordeal doesn't end up becoming a migraine. With his luck, it might. I said, a duck is trying to break into my apartment. Can you kill it? You want me to kill a duck? On his way home from work, Shinso meets a duck that follows him home and harasses his window. The only solution is to ask someone for help, and someone he believes will kill it. Anatodyphobia, which is not technically a real phobia in the origin of the term or recognized as one outside of the umbrella of ornithophobia, is something that followed Hitoshi for years. The first time he encountered a duck and realized the absolutely terrifying creatures they are, he was 4 and a duck stole his food, pecked at his hand, causing bruising and bleeding, and forever leaving his left index finger just a bit crooked along the scar that haunts him every time he sees it. Ever since that fateful day, Hitoshi has been sure to avoid any and all duck-related things. He even went as far as telling Denki that if he's ever seen with anything duck-related ever, he once brought a rubber duck into the shower room at the dorm, Hitoshi will terminate their friendship and consider Denki dead. Admittedly, he'd been tense for months after the incident, once again certain there was a duck lurking around every corner. Hitoshi has lived in peace for 2 years now, without a single incident. He hasn't thought about ducks, he hasn't seen a single one or anything to remind him of them, and he's managed to eat many a duck at various restaurants he's been to. The pleasure of knowing that they can't hurt him because he ate them satisfies something deep inside of him. But now, on his way home, after a 14-hour shift, as the morning arrives and everyone else around him is on their way to work, he feels it. The hairs at his back stand up, his spine tingles with bated anticipation, and every fiber of his being becomes alert. Somewhere close by lurks a duck. Frantically, Hitoshi stops to look around. He's a hero, an incredibly observant one at that, and no duck can hide from him. If only Koda was close by to talk the duck into leaving. Hitoshi loathes the fact that his quirk doesn't work on ducks. It's not trying to hide. Right behind him is a duck. Hitoshi has done enough research on ducks to immediately clock the breed as a mallard, though the coloring surprises him. It's blonde. There are some specks of a light brown here and there, but for the most part, it's blonde. It surprises Hitoshi so much that he almost forgets that his heart is beating loudly in his chest. But once he remembers, his feet move by themselves and he runs. He still has his capture weapon around his neck and uses it to build his momentum, slinging himself home as fast as he possibly can. The anxiety in his body lingers all the way to the balcony of his apartment. It lingers even as he gets inside and he locks every door, window, air duct, any conceivable way something or someone could get inside. Hitoshi doesn't care if he suffocates. He's not letting that stupid duck into his apartment. The subsequent shower he takes, or the leftover food he stuffs his face with, does nothing to ease the tension in his body. His limbs vibrate, his stomach knots in on itself painfully, and he actually debates if he has to call someone to stay in his apartment with him to make sure he doesn't die. He's overreacting. Clearly he's overreacting. He knows his fear is irrational. Trauma is weird, and an incident at 4 haunts you because when you were 4, it was absolutely fucking terrifying because you were 4 and had no idea of other types of hurt in the world. You would think the depravity of human nature Hitoshi encounters on a daily basis would cause his worst fears and be the biggest reason for his nightmares. But alas, life is not so simple. Hitoshi will forever be afraid of ducks. Through slouching on his couch and watching shitty reality TV as he scrolls his phone, some tension leaves his body. By the time he decides it's actually okay to go to sleep, many hours after he should have, the sun is high in the sky and shines blindly through the windows that view his balcony. It shows Hitoshi just how dirty his windows are and reminds him that he should probably clean them at some point, but he's not about to start doing something he's never done in the 3 years he's lived here. If he never cleans them, technically, they never really get that dirty, right? Hitoshi sighs and pushes himself up on the couch. A sound thuds somewhere. Hitoshi looks down to see if he once again managed to forget the remote was on top of him, but to his surprise, it lies neatly on the coffee table next to the empty bento box that was his dinner. He shakes his head and decides he's absolutely too tired and he's not thinking straight. All of Hitoshi's hero training comes back to him. He prepares himself for anything. There's no telling what's going on. He fishes the knife he always has on his person out of its holster on his leg and grips it with the blade facing down, his thumb on the butt. Balcony. He decides now that he's listened enough. Lit by the sunlight that shines through is the duck Hitoshi saw in the street and fled from earlier. Hitoshi lives on the 10th floor, and he knows ducks can fly, and that's another reason why they're terrifying, but he hadn't considered he was so slow the duck managed to follow him home. A knife will not do. He freezes, gripping the knife until his knuckles turn white, and stares at the duck that against his window. It might break. It might break. Hitoshi scrambles back. He keeps a death grip on the knife, should the duck actually manage to get inside. He fiddles with his phone, hands sweating and fingers trembling as he runs for his bathroom. A room in his apartment that does not have a window. He hides in the shower. The floor is still wet from when he used it, but he doesn't care. His slippers and socks will just have to get wet, and there's nothing he will do about it because it's better than being attacked by a fucking duck. It takes him too long to find any of his contacts, but Denki is one of his most recent calls, and Hitoshi knows he'll pick up even if he's working because Hitoshi never calls. Calling automatically means an emergency. Denki picks up on the second room with a, "Hitoshi? What's happening?" "A duck is trying to break into my apartment," whispers Hitoshi. If he's too loud, the duck might find out where he's hiding. What? Don't you live on the 10th floor? "I don't see how that's relevant," hisses Hitoshi. "A duck is trying to break into my apartment. It knows where I live. I might have to move." There's a pause, and Hitoshi almost regrets calling a completely irrational person about this. He should have called Izuku, or maybe Suyu. Even if neither of them understand it, they're usually highly practical and would decide to solve his problem first and ask questions later. I don't actually understand how I'm supposed to help here. I don't fucking know. But there's a duck trying to break into my apartment, and I might fucking die. His voice is strained. He breathes heavily as he waits both for Denki's reply and the sound of the duck actually making it inside. His heart beats rapidly in his chest. The knife still in his hand rests at his thigh, but with the way Hitoshi's gripping it, he might end up accidentally stabbing himself. Bleeding out by his own stab wound might be preferable to a duck. Anything is preferable to a duck. Denki, do something. Hitoshi sounds more desperate than he wishes. Still not sure what to do here, and I'm also on patrol. I can't just leave. Rescue me, says Hitoshi, and for once he means it. Count this as a distress call, because it fucking is one. You're a hero. Can't you save yourself? Hitoshi pulls the phone from his ear and glares at it. He wishes he had laser eyes that worked through a phone, but he only has to hope Denki feels the power of his gaze through the phone, that even that transmits through the satellites that connect them. I am doing what I can by hiding in my bathroom, he says. You can kill the fucking duck, and it would solve my many problems. I can't just kill a duck because it's outside your apartment. How do you even know it's trying to get in? He hangs up. A dull thud from outside the room tells him that the duck is still harassing his window. How does he explain to anyone that a duck broke it? Can he get anything from his insurance for that? Hitoshi doesn't know, and he doesn't care. He searches his phone for the number of the one person he knows that might actually help him kill a duck. If anyone would, it's him. Hitoshi will present it in a way to let go of pent-up aggression and hope that it doesn't kill him too. At least, if it does, he won't be bothered by the duck. The call goes to voicemail and Hitoshi glares at it. He calls again. Voicemail. Call. On the 7th call, it clicks, and an angry voice yells through the phone's speaker. What the actual fuck is your problem? A duck is trying to break into my apartment, and I need you to kill it. Bakugo doesn't reply for a moment. Hitoshi almost thinks he's hung up on him and that he has to try again. But then, what? Hitoshi sighs and prays this entire ordeal doesn't end up becoming a migraine. With his luck, it might. I said, a duck is trying to break into my apartment. Can you kill it? You want me to kill a duck? Yes. Hitoshi rubs the spot between his brows and pinches his nose. The knife in his hand grazes it because the blade is pointed down and he's forgetful. It's barely a nick. Can you? He sounds surprisingly steady now, as if the annoyance of dealing with the uninformed, trademark, helps steady him. Why? Because if you don't, the duck will kill me if I don't kill myself first. You'd take your own life because of a stupid duck? The cool steel of the knife blade against his nose steadies the pounding of his brain, tempers his annoyance, and lets him sigh loudly. I live on the 10th floor and met the duck only a few blocks from my agency. It followed me home and is currently trying to break my window. Yes, I would. Bakugo's quiet for a long moment. What'd you do to the duck? I didn't do shit. What's in it for me? Aggression release. Seriously? It's my day off. I'm not killing some stupid duck unless there's something to gain from it. Hitoshi sighs. It's quiet for long enough to hear another distant thud. That's all he needs. Anything you want. Anything? Bakugo sounds like he doesn't actually believe Hitoshi.
Anything. You must really hate this duck.
Yeah.
Can you kill it? I'm not gonna kill a helpless duck, but I'll help you.
Maybe Hitoshi needs to call Koda, or text, as that's his preferred way of communicating. Someone who can talk to animals might figure out 1, why the duck is harassing him, and 2, get it to go the fuck away. He'll call if someone else tries to imply that ducks aren't that bad. His last resort will be a quick and merciful death by his own hands to avoid the slow and painful one he knows the duck will inflict on him.
You know where I live,
he says. Bakugo hangs up and Hitoshi slumps against the tiles. The water that's left soaks through his sweatpants, but he doesn't care. The safety of the shower is a small comfort to the... He hears. It's a sign the duck hasn't actually managed to break his window, but until Bakugo arrives, it's another small comfort that keeps him somewhat sane. Somewhat. Hitoshi is fairly certain there are tear streaks running down his face and that he looks like shit. Time passes. His phone rings loudly, which Hitoshi curses as it only tells the duck where he's hiding. It's Bakugo, or Bakugou, as Hitoshi has him saved. He answers and puts the phone to his ear with a shaky hand.
What's the code to your door?
Asks a gruff and annoyed Bakugo.
I don't want to tell you.
Hitoshi replies because, frankly, the truth of that is embarrassing, but maybe Bakugo won't actually understand the numbers. But Hitoshi has coasted on that with Denki, but there's no way Bakugo is stupid enough to not get it. Izuku did, but he's obsessed and doesn't count. Tsuyu got it, and that felt worse. If Bakugo doesn't understand, Hitoshi might have to rethink many things.
You want my help or not?
Hitoshi sighs.
Yeah, okay. It's 2004.
It is not on Hitoshi to make it easy to parse. The beeps of the pressing each number sounds through the phone call, and the music of it being correct.
I'll come get you once the duck's gone,
says Bakugo and hangs up. He didn't mention the code. Maybe he didn't get it. The thought of that eases the knot in Hitoshi's gut, though only the one that's scared of information getting out and not the one that's growing tighter because there's still a duck on his balcony. And Hitoshi sent someone out to deal with said duck. Maybe he sent Bakugo to his doom. It's quiet for a long time. Hitoshi almost expects the first sound he hears to be another thud against the window or a loud quack as the duck walks through whatever open door Bakugo leaves for it when he dies in his attempt at killing it, or dealing with it since Bakugo naively said he won't actually kill it. He stares at the bathroom door and waits for something to happen. Anything, really. His worst nightmare or his savior walking through it, and no duck in sight. If the latter happens, Hitoshi will search for a new apartment. He certainly can't stay here anymore when his safety has been compromised. The sound of the beginning of the end is a set of loud knocks against the bathroom door and Bakugo yelling,
I have the duck. You can come out now.
Hitoshi cocks his head and squints at the door.
What do you mean you have the duck?
The only thing he can imagine right now is Bakugo physically holding the duck, and Hitoshi is fairly certain whatever respect he has had for the man through the years they've known each other will vanish if that image becomes reality.
It's locked in a cage by your front door,
says Bakugo. Okay, that might be the next best thing after killing it. Carefully, Hitoshi gets up. His legs are shaky. His grip on the knife loosens until it clatters onto the tiled floor. The relief he expected to get once the duck was dealt with never comes. Instead, Hitoshi feels deathly tired. Bakugo leans against the wall by the door when Hitoshi carefully opens a few inches to peek through. It's open enough that he can see the cargo pants and the loose t-shirt Bakugo wears, that he can see the toned arms and messy hair, and a pretty face that does ease the tension within him. The lack of duck in sight helps, even though the knowledge that the duck is unguarded somewhere else in the apartment doesn't.
You gonna actually get out of there or what?
Is it safe? Bakugo closes his eyes, and a deep sigh fills the air.
Yes.
Hitoshi opens the door wider, though he's not sure he actually believes it. He doesn't trust that a duck that managed to actually follow him home like that doesn't know how to get out of a cage somehow. Until he sees the proof, this is Schrodinger's duck, there's no way to know if the duck is a threat or not without seeing it.
You look like shit,
says Bakugo. His eyes rake across Hitoshi, though they don't linger anywhere, and there's a disgusted curl of his lips Hitoshi could do without. He knows, though. His socks and slippers are wet and yucky, and he wants them off. His sweatpants are plastered against his butt, and his t-shirt sticks to him in all the places he's sweat through it. The nick on his nose can't possibly help. If not for the duck, Hitoshi would have been in a sensory nightmare. If not for the duck, he'd never look like shit in front of Bakugo either. Bakugo stops on Hitoshi's face. He reaches out a hand and pinches Hitoshi's chin. The touch is scorching, and so is the light graze of a calloused finger over the bridge of his nose.
What'd you do to your nose?
His voice is a lot softer than the gruff way he'd insulted Hitoshi's looks.
I cut it,
says Hitoshi, and resists the temptation to lean into Bakugo's touch. He stares, needing Bakugo to be the first to pull away because he refuses to. There's something so warm about the touch, about the way Bakugo's brows furrow as they continue to stare at Hitoshi's face. It's almost enough to let Hitoshi forget about the stupid duck that's still in his apartment.
It's bleeding.
Bakugo pulls away and shows Hitoshi a streak of blood on his finger. His touch disappears, and he pushes past Hitoshi into the bathroom.
Where do you have the Band-Aids?
Basket under the sink, replies Hitoshi. He swallows and doesn't dare move. All he does is silently tell himself to not read into it because Bakugo is only helping him with a duck problem, and he's a hero, and heroes patch wounds and do first aid where they can. The fact that Bakugo will see the huge basket Hitoshi has under his sink with a perfectly organized system for any type of medical supply he might ever need is completely irrelevant to this, as is the way Hitoshi's heart beats rapidly, or the way his body fills with a warmth that starts at his heart and flows out into his limbs, or the way Hitoshi's earlier exhaustion dissipates as he's revitalized by Bakugo's caring. He doesn't get to linger on the thought for long until Bakugo's back and carefully places a Band-Aid along the bridge of Hitoshi's nose. Bakugo rubs over it twice, fingers going back and forth one too many times, in Hitoshi's opinion, to make sure the Band-Aid stays.
You look like an idiot,
he says and walks away. Hitoshi sucks in a breath and follows. He's not going to lose sight of Bakugo when he's the only person who stands between Hitoshi and a killer duck. Whether or not he'd sacrifice Bakugo to save himself, he doesn't know yet. It seems counterintuitive when any scenario ends with Hitoshi's torturous death anyway. He's not sure he could subject Bakugo to that either. He'd be incredibly sad if he had to live in a world where Bakugo Katsuki doesn't exist. Bakugo moves to the kitchen, which is also Hitoshi's living room. The fact that it's also the same room where Hitoshi's front door is, and that he can now see the duck stuck in a cage in the Genkin, is something he doesn't realize until he stares at it. He stops, is unable to take his eyes off the creature for fear that the moment he doesn't look is the moment he'll figure out the lock mechanism and get out. Hitoshi will take no chances.
What do you want to do with it?
Asks Bakugo. There's a clatter of something hitting the tiny amount of counter Hitoshi's kitchen has, a few seconds with the spring running, and another clatter of something landing in the sink.
I want to kill it. I thought we'd established that.
Hitoshi glares at it.
It's a harmless animal. You can't just kill it.
That's what animal control would do. Bakugo sighs and walks over to the cage. To Hitoshi's utter horror, he fiddles with the lock and lets the duck walk out. He points at it and says,
"Harmless."
Hitoshi's heart shoots into his throat, and even though it will do nothing good against a creature that can literally fly, he climbs up onto the tiny kitchen table he has that should neither be able to hold him nor has the space for it, because it's less a kitchen table and more an everything I don't know where to put table.
"It's not harmless,"
he says through gritted teeth and glares at Bakugo. To prove his point, the duck flaps its large wings and quacks loudly, increasing the rapid beat of Hitoshi's heart because the quack sounds like a fucking battle cry. It continues to flap its wings, almost taunting, as if it's trying to mess with him in an attempt to make Bakugo not believe in his fear. At the same time as Bakugo shrugs and moves away from the duck towards the kitchen, it flies up into the air and lands on the kitchen table with Hitoshi. He lets out a screech that might deafen him and jumps down. Bakugo is suddenly right next to him, helping him with his balance that he didn't need help with. But Bakugo's hand clasped around his bicep steadies him enough so that he finds some courage to stare down the duck. The duck is relaxed. It nips at itself, settled down in the midst of all Hitoshi's clutter.
"Maybe it likes you,"
says Bakugo. Hitoshi flares his nostrils and turns around to glare at him. He pokes him in the chest repeatedly, trying to make it hurt as he says, "You're a fucking idiot. It attacked me, and you're saying it likes me? Are you blind on top of being deaf?"
"Look, I tried an explosion on it earlier. A small one. It doesn't do shit."
Bakugo actually looks guilty. He's still holding Hitoshi's arm.
"What?"
It's bad enough it's a duck, and that it's currently loose inside Hitoshi's apartment. The fact that it can't be hurt or killed means Hitoshi has to consider his own death as a very real possibility to be rid of the current problem.
"It remained unharmed,"
says Bakugo. He lets go of Hitoshi's arm and holds out a hand in direction of the duck. He makes an O shape with the other in the palm of it, and a soft, tiny explosion shoots towards the duck. It should hit. It should be a perfect hit. There should be a hole through not just the duck, but also the opposite wall and into the other apartment. But there's only some smoke and a duck that didn't notice someone trying to kill it. Hitoshi loses all energy in his body and slumps forward, leaning his entire weight onto Bakugo because he can't possibly keep himself up. The thought of an immortal duck is the last straw. Someone should kill him now. At least he'll die in Bakugo's arms. Bakugo, for some weird reason Hitoshi struggles to figure out, actually holds him up. He twists until Hitoshi leans his head against Bakugo's shoulder and wraps his arms around Hitoshi. He rests his head on top of Hitoshi's, chin digging into Hitoshi's scalp. He smells sweet and sweaty. He smells exactly like Hitoshi knows Bakugo smells, and it eases part of his fear. It doesn't do anything to his rapidly beating heart, or the nerves coursing through his system, only adds to those with something a bit more positive to cancel out the negative. Unfortunately, a positive and a negative result in a negative, and it doesn't help Hitoshi nearly as much as he wishes it would.
"I'll figure something out,"
Bakugo says, weirdly soft.
"Really? I knew you didn't like 'em, but I've never actually seen you scared of shit, and this seems extreme."
Calloused fingers brush over the nape of Hitoshi's neck, fiddles with the hair there, cards through it. Hitoshi closes his eyes and lets himself indulge in Bakugo's touch. Blaming it all on the duck works at least.
"Do you think Koda can speak to it?" "That's not a bad idea."
Bakugo's hand falls away and Hitoshi pouts quietly to himself.
"You have his number?"
"Yeah."
"Where's your phone?"
Bakugo pushes himself away and leaves Hitoshi cold at the lack of touch. He doesn't completely let go of Hitoshi either, which is good because if he did, Hitoshi would have fallen on his ass.
Coffee table,
he says. He eyes the duck again. It's grooming itself, seemingly unaware of the torment it's causing just by existing. It's clearly a taunt, a fake out until it decides to attack for real. It probably has a tiny knife hiding in its feathers, there to get the moment Hitoshi is at his most vulnerable. Bakugo's touch disappears completely, leaving Hitoshi to stand upright by himself. He leans against the kitchen counter, as far away from the duck he can get with his feet that won't move and barely manage to keep him standing. He's barely found balance when the duck gets up, flapping its wings, quacks loudly, and directs its murderous gaze on him. It doesn't matter that it has eyes on the side of its head. It is clearly looking straight at Hitoshi with intent to kill, something only emphasized by the blood-red color of its eyes. And unlike any other situation where Hitoshi is caught between flight, fight, and freeze, Hitoshi freezes. The duck's flight path is Hitoshi. It crashes into his chest as Hitoshi squeezes his eyes shut, succumbing to his inevitable death. Its weird feet land on his chest, wings slap at his arms as he covers his head, and its beak nips at his shirt, taking hold of it and letting Hitoshi know that even if he managed to fight back, it would be fruitless. It continues endlessly. Hitoshi will bruise with how the wings hit the bare skin of his arms, and with various nips of his shirt that pinch his skin as it happens, his chest will look massacred. At some point, the duck seems to be using force, trying to drag Hitoshi with him somewhere. Hitoshi whimpers, a sound he can't stop because his life is over. He can neither face a single soul again or think he'll live to see another day. And then the duck is gone, and there's breathing room, and he can hear some weird noises and hands prying his arms away from his face.
Open your eyes.
Bakugo's voice is soft, close, grounding.
I locked the duck in the cage again.
Hitoshi takes a deep breath and opens his eyes. Bakugo stands close. So close, the first thing Hitoshi sees is crimson eyes and furrowed brows and a frown. Bakugo's hand comes up and cups his face, thumb rubbing away tears Hitoshi hadn't realized fell in his attempt to hide within himself during an attack he would like to forget.
I underestimated the hate a tiny bird can have,
he says, which is basically an apology from Bakugo. Hitoshi never thought he'd see the day.
I told you it didn't like me,
he says, and it sounds like a child who didn't get what he wanted. But this is Bakugo's fault, who actually let the fucker out of its cage when Hitoshi clearly said it was out to get him.
Yeah,
Bakugo says.
Koda said he'll come by when he's done work.
When is that?
I want him to command the duck to never come within a 41,000-kilometer radius of me ever again.
Hitoshi looks over Bakugo's shoulder to glare at the duck that's perched perfectly happy within its cage as if it didn't just attack him. It's too peaceful, and it doesn't help that with them so close, Hitoshi notes that the blonde coloring of the duck's feathers match Bakugo's hair color. Bakugo snorts.
Specific. It's more than the circumference of the Earth. The duck would have to be in space to uphold it, and I hope it dies there. Why do you know that?
Asks Bakugo.
Because I want to be able to know how far I need to stay away from ducks to not be on the same planet as them.
Hitoshi sighs.
Look, I realize you don't have stupid fears that impact your life because you're all perfect and shit, but I don't like ducks, and I will know everything about them to make sure they can't hurt me. As you have clearly seen, they will if they get the chance. Yeah.
There's a pause, and Bakugo steps away from him. With the duck right there, he feels vulnerable even though Bakugo is less than a meter away from him. However, there's no way Hitoshi will do anything about it even if he wants to. He's embarrassed himself enough for one day. For a lifetime, really. Maybe it's a good thing it's Bakugo that's helping him. Denki would have told every living soul on the planet. Hopefully, Bakugo either doesn't give a fuck about it outside of helping him, or he has realized exactly how serious this is to Hitoshi and won't tell anyone so they can laugh at him.
What do you want to do while we wait?
Bakugo leans against the kitchen table. Some of the clutter on it fell off during the duck's attack, but Hitoshi is too drained to even think about cleaning it up. That should be the duck's job.
You're staying? I'm not leaving you alone with that fucking duck, no.
Bakugo shrugs.
I told you, it's my day off. I have nowhere to be.
Hitoshi sighs.
I should sleep, honestly, he says. I was about to go to bed when it started harassing my window.
Just the thought of it has a shudder rush through him. If only he could start today over.
Go to sleep then.
Really?
I'll guard it. Or you.
You won't be bored. Bakugo rolls his eyes and pushes Hitoshi in the direction of his bedroom.
No, go to sleep. You look like shit.
Wow, thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear right now. Replies Hitoshi sarcastically. It feels good. It feels like him. A bit more normal than the day has actually been.
It's the truth.
Hitoshi rolls his eyes and walks away. He feels safe with Bakugo keeping watch. He's already been saved twice today, and it's in its cage. The duck shouldn't be able to do anything. The duck shouldn't be able to do shit. Hopefully. The duck shouldn't be able to do shit in a cage. However, Hitoshi has barely set foot inside his bedroom before he hears a loud quack, followed by more. It sounds like a siren has gone off. He decides, even if his body is now definitely too tense for him to possibly be able to sleep, that this is Bakugo's problem as the guard. Not that Hitoshi would have gone close to the duck to figure out why it has to screech like it's trying to deafen everyone within a 100-meter radius. It lasts the entire time he uses to change clothes, to rid himself of every sensory nightmare, to watch the small bruises that are already forming on his body. He throws all of his clothes outside his bedroom door, deciding that he will burn them as soon as he gets the opportunity to. He's definitely not wearing them again. As Hitoshi tucks himself into bed and bundles himself underneath his weighted blanket, the terrifying screech of the duck stops. For a blissful moment that lasts a couple of minutes at most, Hitoshi fully believes he'll get to sleep. Then the screech starts again. Hitoshi wonders if a weighted blanket is enough of a shield if the duck escapes, if it tries again. He might suffocate if he's to hide under it for any length of time.
Ow!
Hitoshi presses his lips together. He should get up, help Bakugo with whatever is happening because of the duck. Because the duck is still screeching and Hitoshi's almost certain the exclamation had to do with the duck. But Bakugo said he'd guard, and Hitoshi has to trust he'll do a decent job.
You fucking piece of shit!
Bakugo yells. He's closer now. There's the distant sound of fluttering, of metal against metal, all with the screeching as a background noise. There's a grunt from Bakugo, another loud exclamation, and more shit-talking. Then it's quiet. Completely and utterly quiet. Hitoshi's heart pounds in his chest. He clutches at the blanket and stares at the door of his bedroom. No sound comes. Starts up again. His eyes go dry, but his brain is afraid to blink. That's when it'll happen. That's when he'll miss it.
Hey, troll doll,
Bakugo says.
You awake?
Yes. Hitoshi sounds unsure. After the commotion he heard, he's unsure if he wants to let Bakugo open the door. He's fairly certain the duck got out or something. Maybe.
Can I come in?
Hitoshi sighs.
Why? You're guarding it. Because I want to test something.
Explain it.
I can't.
Then there's a thud, which Hitoshi imagines is Bakugo leaning his head against the door. Then there's another thud, and a quack, and an
ow.
The duck is right outside Hitoshi's door, and Bakugo is trying to get him to open it. It must have brainwashed him, indoctrinated him somehow. There's no other explanation. So he says,
"No. Were you hit with a quirk at some point today?" "How is that relevant?" "Answer the question." "No."
Or,
"Not that I know of."
It's impossible to keep control of every single person you meet during a patrol, or who might have bumped into him at other times that have a touch-based quirk. Some people are incredibly reckless when they have a quirk they can't actually control. One time, Hitoshi turned into a raccoon. He's thankful it was temporary. Bakugo grunts. Could a quirk really make a duck follow him and attack him? Is it some villain? Is it fear-based? Does a villain know he has a fear of ducks and is specifically targeting him? Hitoshi has a lot of enemies, even if they don't actually know who he is. He's pissed off plenty of people in his career, and he'll certainly piss off more. Would anyone really go so far as to harass him with a duck? It seems unlikely, but Hitoshi isn't ruling it out.
"If I promise to make sure the duck doesn't get close to you, can I test something?"
Hitoshi scrunches his nose, but Bakugo sounds tired and done, and he's only been alone with the duck for 10 minutes, or something like that. He doesn't understand exactly what kind of enlightenment Bakugo found within those minutes, because all Hitoshi heard was screeching and fear, but maybe Bakugo is braver than Hitoshi.
"It's in the cage,"
adds Bakugo. Hitoshi pulls his blanket up until only his eyes stick out, using it as the shield it might be.
"Okay,"
he says, muffled against the fabric. The door opens slowly, and sure enough, the duck sits there in its cage. It seems smug, as if he's telling Hitoshi that it fucking won something because Bakugo opened the door to his bedroom. He regrets it now. There's a duck in his bedroom, and it may be in a cage, but it's certainly an omen of something bad being about to happen. Hitoshi glares at it, tries to instill as much disgust in his eyes as is possible so that the duck gets the message. Maybe it does, because it quacks loudly. Bakugo sets the cage down at the other end of the room, which means as far away from Hitoshi and his bed as possible. It quacks again, flaps its wings against the cage.
"I want to say no now,"
says Hitoshi.
"Sure, it'll take a few minutes, okay?"
Bakugo leaves the duck to its annoyances, taking steps back towards the door. The duck quacks louder, flaps harder. It bites at the bars of its cage and practically screams. It's louder and louder for each step away Bakugo takes, the flapping more and more aggressive, until Bakugo stops and starts walking back inside. For some stupid and weird reason, the duck stops. It cocks its ugly head to the side to watch Bakugo intensely as he walks further and further into the room. It still quacks, still flaps its wings, but it settles down as Bakugo reaches the edge of Hitoshi's bed. Hitoshi looks from the deranged bird and Bakugo, wondering what stupid conversation is going on with the two of them. Especially because Bakugo just stands there. He doesn't do anything. He just stands still at the edge of Hitoshi's bed, just within reach, and yet so far. The duck quacks loudly. Bakugo reaches out and places his hand on Hitoshi's head. As Hitoshi has a breakdown because what the fuck is happening, the duck tucks in on itself and settles calmly in the cage. Bakugo removes his hand. The duck quacks. And for what, to Hitoshi, feels like an eternity, a nightmare, and a dream all in one. They keep doing that. Bakugo places his hand in Hitoshi's hair. The duck calms. Bakugo takes his hand away. Quack. Hand, calm. No hand, quack. Each quack instills Hitoshi with mortal fear, so that the next time Bakugo is about to pull away, Hitoshi grasps it. The duck doesn't react, and Hitoshi relaxes. He clings onto Bakugo's hand, refusing to let go even though his blanket falls down to reveal his whole face.
"What is happening?"
he asks.
Bakugo shrugs. "I don't know why, but the duck calms whenever we're touching for some stupid-ass reason." "How did you figure that out?"
Because really, where are any clues, and how could he possibly be sane enough with a duck around to actually notice?
"It started its stupidly loud shit right after you left for the bedroom, and it didn't stop, so I tried moving the cage. The closer to you I moved, the better."
Bakugo sighs and shakes his head.
"It bit me when it thought I wasn't moving fast enough. Fucking annoying piece of shit."
It relaxing by being closer does not answer shit.
"I don't fucking know, okay? I'm just trying to get it to shut the fuck up."
Hitoshi appreciates that. He keeps hold of Bakugo's hand, just to make sure the duck doesn't start quacking again, but keeps itself perfectly calm inside the cage, and scoots a little in his bed. He doesn't really have a bed that's super suitable for two people, but it's comfortable.
"I needed quiet, and you can't stand there, so..."
He uses his free hand to open the blanket for Bakugo to climb in next to him. Bakugo stands still and stares. Hitoshi stares back, but his hand is getting clammy and Bakugo isn't holding his. It's just Hitoshi desperately clinging to Bakugo because he's fairly certain he'll have a heart attack if the duck continues making sound. In the end, Hitoshi stops caring. He drags Bakugo forward so that he stumbles and has to lean down on the bed. Using both the surprise and unbalanced position, Hitoshi forcefully has Bakugo lying down in the bed next to him. He has to let go of Bakugo's hand to do so, but the duck doesn't say anything, calmly okay with Hitoshi manhandling Bakugo down on the bed. And once Bakugo lies stiffly next to him, Hitoshi takes his hand again, just to make sure.
"There,"
he says. Hitoshi is no less stiff than Bakugo.
"There what?"
asks Bakugo. He sounds grouchy, more than usual.
"If the only thing that gets the duck to shut up is us touching, then you gotta lay here and I'll sleep,"
explains Hitoshi as fast as he can to make sure he doesn't chicken out of explaining it. Being forced into close proximity to Bakugo isn't exactly something he'd consider ideal. A fantasy, yes, but ideal, no. Hitoshi is certain it can only lead to an early demise.
"Okay,"
says Bakugo, and Hitoshi can feel him relaxing a bit where they touch. He jostles Hitoshi, pushing at him and ruining Hitoshi's cocoon within his blanket.
"It's uncomfortable, shithead, move."
If they have to lie like this, at least making sure Bakugo is comfortable is a great way to slow his demise. Maybe he can delay his death by a couple of hours, or a few minutes at least, so Hitoshi moves and lets Bakugo figure out what is the most comfortable. And then he has a heart attack about 40 years too early because Bakugo, sitting a bit upright with a pillow between his back and the wall, pulls Hitoshi close until his head is on Bakugo's chest. He wraps an arm around Hitoshi's torso, softly letting it rest on top of him, with his fingers just short of reaching up to card through Hitoshi's hair. It's an image from many a fantasy Hitoshi has had, though those usually contain a lack of clothes that the reality doesn't mirror. As Bakugo covers Hitoshi with the duvet again, with it a shield between Bakugo's arm and Hitoshi's back, Hitoshi goes through all the stages of... He's not exactly sure what, but he's certainly through plenty of stages. Denial in the form of letting himself know that this is some weird cross between a dream and a nightmare, and he's not sure if he's mad about it or not. Anger at the fact that this all has to happen because of a fucking duck. Back to denial because it's actually happening, right? And then into some sort of weird in-between state of thinking nothing and everything all at once because Bakugo starts carding his fingers through Hitoshi's hair. In response, his body goes slack. He lets out a deep sigh and his eyes droop closed. Much needed sleep takes over, and Hitoshi curses the universe for letting him have a fantasy come through only to rip it from him in the form of much needed sleep. Time passes. An earthquake. That's the only possible explanation for the way Hitoshi's body shakes. Which sucks because Hitoshi has a lot of things he hasn't secured in the event of an earthquake, and there's plenty of those things he'd not like to have break. He'd be more worried if he had that cat he's always wanted, so at least no animals will be harmed in the earthquake.
Oi, sleepyhead.
The illusion of the earthquake disappears and Hitoshi is reminded of where he is and the events just prior to him falling asleep. He scrambles away from Bakugo, who he realized he was still sleeping on top of. The action results in a loud quack from the other side of the bedroom where the duck is. Hitoshi wishes for the earthquake again, if only because it might have squashed the stupid duck that haunts him.
Are you always this jumpy?
Asks Bakugo with a raised brow.
No, he says, but I had blissfully forgotten the duck and now I'm awake again, and I don't like it.
Bakugo shakes his head, and no comment about how stupid Hitoshi is echoes in the room. It's a little weird and frankly very concerning.
Koda's on his way,
says Bakugo and shakes Hitoshi's phone in the air.
He'll be here in 5.
Oh. Hitoshi should put clothes on, or other clothes than the ones he's been sleeping in, which is very worn t-shirt and sweatpants full of holes that he only put on because Bakugo was still in his apartment and he had an intense desire not to be perceived. At the very least, he needs something that can be mistaken for pants. The duck quacks again and Hitoshi jumps where he stands. Koda cannot get here fast enough. Some kind of silent agreement has Bakugo leave the room with the duck as Hitoshi finds something to wear. The duck quacks and screeches and generally has Hitoshi on edge as physically possible the entire time it takes Hitoshi to put on some pants and not look like a total slob. He even takes a few seconds he needs to tie up his hair into a bun because he knows it looks stupid after sleeping. There's probably a huge tangle somewhere that a bun thankfully hides. When Hitoshi emerges from the bedroom looking somewhat presentable, Koda is already here. He's crouching on the floor in front of the duck that's still quacking like a maniac. Hitoshi keeps his distance, leaning against the far wall and watching silently because even with Koda here, which is a relief Hitoshi didn't realize, he doesn't trust the duck. Koda turns around and the duck goes quiet, calm inside the cage. In sign language, because that's always been the preferred language of communication for Koda and has become the usual way to communicate between them, he says, "The duck is angry at you." Hitoshi almost rolls his eyes. He could have told anyone that with how it attacked him. "Why?" he signs. Koda signing. "When I came here, all he says was, 'You two are fucking idiots,' again and again."
"It cursed?"
asked Bakugo, which is not Hitoshi's takeaway from the question, but a fair point either way. Koda nods. "It sounded like you." He points to Bakugo when he signs you. Bakugo clicks his tongue and glares at the duck. Maybe the whole scenario has instilled a hatred of ducks in him. That would be good. Would let Hitoshi know that he wouldn't have to worry about anything suddenly duck-related around Bakugo in the future. Hopefully.
"Okay, so why are we idiots?"
Koda signing. He said he's a manifestation of a person's soulmate crush love interest, at the very least someone you're romantically interested in. Hitoshi supposes he can't blame aggressiveness on it being a duck anymore. If it's a manifestation of his soulmate, which, yuck, that sounds like too much of a commitment, maybe it could just be because who's to say that his soulmate is also his crush? Not that Hitoshi has a crush. He has a basic appreciation for attractive people. Yeah, that's it. The very small fact that the only person he has said appreciation for currently is Bakugo does not mean that that is a crush. All it does is maybe explain why a duck would bruise him in an attempt to do something. Hitoshi has to admit he's a little confused as to what exactly the duck has been trying to do all this time, though.
"What else?"
asks Bakugo, impatient now. He crosses his arms over his chest, making his t-shirt stretch over his pecs in a way that has Hitoshi's gut churn and heat pool a little further down. Basic appreciation for someone attractive. That's all it is. The duck can go suck it. Coda signing. It's supposed to help you realize it. I didn't understand exactly, but it was annoyed you never kissed because you were so close, and that would conclude its job. Coda signing. Stupid duck has some weird shit going on. What kind of weird-ass box does it want to label people in if they have to kiss to be with someone? Hitoshi literally slept with his head on Bakugou's chest, and that's more than intimate enough that it could have poofed out of existence with a job well done, and Hitoshi could have gone back to his life. Now he might have to kiss Bakugo, which he's not opposed to, really. He just doesn't want his face melted off. It's not exactly the help he asked Bakugo for, nor something he feels like he can ask. Signing. Is that the only way to get it to leave? Asks Hitoshi. He fears his voice doesn't work anymore, not with how rapidly his heart beats at the thought of his lips against Bakugo's and Bakugo's hand in his hair and Bakugo tugging at it and his mouth opening and maybe his thigh. No, Hitoshi has to stop thinking about all the maybes that won't happen because there has to be another solution. Coda shakes his head, signing. It's his job to get you together with your soulmate or crush or whoever the quirk that manifests him registers as someone you should be with.
Ha!
Bakugo grins at Hitoshi.
It was a quirk.
Hitoshi sighs and ignores the smug look on Bakugo's face, signing. Okay, so that's it. It'll harass me until I kiss whoever it thinks I should be with. Coda signing. Yes. Do you know who? The duck knows, and he can tell you if no one comes to mind. Hitoshi nods. He wishes he didn't know, but it's neither hard to put two and two together considering the duck's behavior and the person who most often occupies his sex dreams and regular tension releases. Coda smiles, signing. He should disappear once you kiss them. Good luck. Hitoshi signing. Thank you. Coda signing. No problem. If you have duck-related problems, you can always ask. I'll help. And Hitoshi really appreciates that. It's nice to have one person who realizes just how much he loathes ducks, how much they terrify him. He has friends who'd help him even if they'll make fun of him, but he's pretty sure Coda is the only person who gets it, even if he isn't afraid of them himself. Coda tells the duck to be calm and sleepy until it disappears before he leaves, which Hitoshi appreciates. He has such a nifty quirk and Hitoshi is jealous. No one would care if he could talk and command animals, but the moment he can do it to people, he's immediately shunned as taking away free will. That's exactly what Coda does with animals and no one complains about that. Humanity really has a stupid superiority complex that leaves every other organism and inorganic material on Earth in the ditch just to keep itself on top. As the door closes behind Coda, Hitoshi slides down the wall he's been leaning against and puts his head between his knees. He's gonna have to tell Bakugo it's him. He's gonna have to do something to make sure the duck disappears. And once it's gone, he's gonna look for a new place to live, and until he finds it, he's gonna crash Denki's place, or maybe Suyu's, as she's a lot cleaner and actually cooks until he's found one.
So, who is it?
Asks Bakugo. He's oddly quiet. Hitoshi looks up and sighs.
Will you get mad?
He asks.
The fuck would I get mad about?
Bakugo says that, but he already sounds mad. He starts pacing, walking up and down the very small floor that is Hitoshi's kitchen. He stops pacing to check all of Hitoshi's 3 cabinets and ends up slamming a glass on the counter. If that isn't mad, Hitoshi is highly unsure what mad is, or maybe Bakugo just wants to leave Hitoshi's apartment and never come back because Hitoshi is a failure of a human being and he's used up Bakugo's entire day off on a stupid duck. Maybe it doesn't matter.
I don't know, says Hitoshi. I want the duck gone, though, so...
Bakugo stops and glares at Hitoshi.
We all want the fucking duck gone. Who is it? You just gotta kiss him, right? Can't be that hard.
Oh, it definitely is that hard. But Hitoshi has to rip the band-aid off, and he'd much rather face Bakugo's wrath or annoyance or whatever than to keep the duck in his apartment any longer than he already has been here. He needs it gone for his mental and physical health, and he might have to burn most of the things he owns just because it's been there. He can't wait to move.
You. Huh?
Bakugo clutches the glass in his hand, knuckles white to the extent Hitoshi almost thinks it'll break. Hitoshi pushes himself off the ground and walks the few meters until he's standing close to Bakugo. Not so close Bakugo can punch him or throttle him or whatever reaction he'd have, but close enough that he knows Bakugo will hear him.
You,
he says, enunciating the word as much as possible.
Me?
Hitoshi nods.
Seriously?
Look, you're hot.
I wouldn't call it a crush, and I definitely wouldn't call it a soulmate, but yeah.
Hitoshi trails off, not exactly sure how to classify what he feels for Bakugo. He wouldn't mind a date or a relationship, though there's definitely a trial period involved when it comes to someone like Bakugo. If all Bakugo wants is to accept the kiss and then for them to move on, Hitoshi doesn't really care. He'll be sad, but he'll be fine. And if Bakugo is interested in only sex, Hitoshi is more than game. Really, whatever Bakugo is willing to give Hitoshi, he'll be fine with. He will find the kiss necessary, though, whether Bakugo wants it or not.
Okay.
Hitoshi cocks his head.
Okay, what? Fucking...
Bakugo lets go of the glass, which clatters against the counter as it steadies itself, and cups Hitoshi's face with both hands. He digs his fingers into Hitoshi's scalp and pulls Hitoshi forward. He doesn't even have time to react before there's lips against his and warmth pouring into his body. And to ruin it all, small fireworks sound inside the apartment, and they jump apart to look towards the cage where the duck was trapped. It's replaced by small fading fireworks that spell out, "Congratulations!" It apparently wasn't enough to set a duck loose on him in an attempt to make him confess to a crush. They have to use fireworks to trigger other trauma, just as he has his first kiss with the person he's wanted to kiss since sometime in high school. What a massively stupid quirk, and fuck whoever has it.
It's gone,
says Bakugo.
I can see that.
Hitoshi nods.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm sorry I ruined your day off,
says Hitoshi. He drags a hand over his face, feels the relief of a duck being gone mix with the exhaustion of being on high alert for hours on end. It's worse than he feels in the aftermath of a mission where he's in the state of alertness for days or weeks, sometimes even months. Maybe it's telling that he doesn't fear for his life most during those missions, though death is a very real possibility. And his immediate thought from the moment he saw the duck was a painful demise.
You didn't,
Bakugo grunts.
Would have just stayed at home and done nothing anyway. That must be preferable to this. No.
Hitoshi turns to look at Bakugo because that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Bakugo looks down. He fiddles with his fingers, rubbing his thumb over his palm. There's a dust of red coloring his cheeks and the tip of his nose.
Why?
Asks Hitoshi. The sight of Bakugo and maybe the very fact that he said no has him bold, a bit more confident. Bakugo doesn't answer. It takes a few moments, and then he lifts his head and looks at Hitoshi. He sighs.
I like spending time with you,
he says, though it sounds like he hates said fact, and he's embarrassed about it. Frankly, Hitoshi would be too. He wouldn't exactly call himself fun. Annoying, yes, but fun, not so much.
Really?
Hitoshi nods slowly as he continues to digest the information. The thought that Bakugo likes spending time with him stirs something deep, stirs the very thing that made Bakugo the solution to the duck problem in the end.
Well, the duck speaks for itself.
Bakugo snorts.
You're an idiot.
You're a really aggressive duck.
The duck wasn't me.
Bakugo glares at him.
I'd never bruise you like that.
he says, and points at Hitoshi's chest. Hitoshi shrugs. The attack itself and the fear that coursed through him at the time will stay with him forever. Add to everything he's hated about ducks since he was 4. But, like the idiot he is, coping with humor is a necessity. So,
I wouldn't mind if you did.
Flirting. Hitoshi is flirting. Maybe not a good idea, but the cat's out of the bag. Bakugo already knows, and there's not a lot Hitoshi can do to take it back. The duck kind of gave that away.
Idiot.
You've already said that. Hitoshi smirks.
Can I be something else? What do you want to be?
I don't know.
What do you want me to be?
Bakugo's face reddens.
Fucking.
Oh, I can do that.
I hate you,
says Bakugo, and grabs at the collar of Hitoshi's shirt. He scrunches it up within his fist and harshly pulls Hitoshi close.
Be mine,
he says, and softly kisses Hitoshi. There are no fireworks this time, but Hitoshi thinks that maybe there are fireworks inside his stomach. His body explodes with warmth and pleasure. As if instinct, he reaches a hand up to twist his fingers into Bakugo's unruly and surprisingly soft hair to keep him close to make sure he can't pull away before Hitoshi has a chance to kiss him back.
By the way,
Bakugo says when they pull away from each other, though there's barely an inch between them.
My duck would have been you.
Hitoshi kisses him.
That shouldn't be romantic, he says. Never mention ducks around me again.
Bakugo grins.
I'm not promising. I might reconsider all of this.
Hitoshi playfully starts pulling away.
Too late,
Bakugo says and keeps Hitoshi close in a death grip, wrapping both arms around him and squeezes so hard Hitoshi thinks his bones might break.
Well, are you willing to let me stay with you until I find a new place to live?
Bakugo releases his grip, though he doesn't let Hitoshi go.
What's wrong with this place?
It's infested with a duck, and I would like to see it burn. Bakugo snorts.
Yeah, sure. I have a spare room.
And here I thought I would get half of your bed. But I can always ask Sue instead. She has a spare room, and she's nice. Hitoshi half-heartedly tries to wiggle out of Bakugo's grip.
If you pack a bag quickly, that bed is only a 20-minute trip away.
Help me? Bakugo kisses him and releases him again. They only pack a quick bag with essentials, and Bakugo says they can come back for more later. And maybe Hitoshi decides to use a bit longer to find a new place than he originally intended. At least if he lives with Bakugo, there will always be someone there to fight sudden ducks that might show up. Hitoshi really hopes the stupid duck manifestation of Bakugo is the last duck he'll ever see in his life. If he sees a duck at any time before he dies, it will be too soon. The author did put a little clarification at the end. The 2004 was a reference to Bakugo's birthday, if anybody didn't catch on to that also. So I just wanted to add that in there for you guys. But I really hope that you guys liked this one. I actually love this one so much. It's so funny. And this author right here, Ladybugfanfics, actually does quite a few fanfics where Hitoshi is scared of ducks. That is like a tag that they use quite frequently in their fan fictions. So if you liked this one and you liked the Shin Baku and you liked Hitoshi being scared of ducks, go over and check out their AO3 page. The link for this fic will be in the description. A couple of their fics are rated explicit, and while I have read them, unfortunately I won't be doing them on YouTube. I am not at the point where I'm going to be reading explicit material on YouTube. I cannot anticipate that day ever coming, but I do strongly suggest some of their other Shin Baku fics. Alright friends, I hope you really enjoyed this one. The next video that will be posted on the channel will be the first chapter of Pieces of Us by Mana Banana. I did promise that at the end of the last video, and I did want you to know it is still coming. I know I did a whole big thing at the beginning of this fic about it, but I just really wanted to record this one shot, and So I just went ahead and did it and changed everything around a little bit. But anyway, I hope you'll come back and join me for that next fic. And if you do, I'll see you next time.